Hi there, I'm Elisipka, and this is the Apatros review. Now in this episode, this is basically the Spectrum 12, and this is a special I do every 25 episodes, every 25 reviews, to basically take a look back at all the crappy movies and games and books I've covered in the previous 25 episodes. Now, in order to qualify for the D Spectrum, then a subject has to receive either a D+, which is a 3 out of 10 means disappointing, a D, which is a 2 out of 10 means generally a bad piece of work, and a dreaded D-, 1 out of 10, reserved only for those extremely atrocious pieces of hitsa that simply have no redeeming value to them all. Now, only D spectrum candidates actually apply for this show, anyway. And now, most critics do basically like the best and worst films they've covered in the past few episodes, but, you know, because my one will be constantly in flux, so I do it this way. Anyway. Now, unfortunately, I haven't had enough bad review subjects in the past 25 episodes to fill out the special, so I've only got 5 candidates for this one. Which actually is a good and bad thing. Bad thing if you're a masochist and you don't see enough subjects in the past 25 episodes to fill it up, but it's a good thing because that means most of the films I covered were actually pretty decent. Anyway, so let's get started. Now, number 1, A Candle for the Devil, also known as It Happened a Nightmare Inn, directed by Eugenio Martini in 1973. I gave this one a D+, it's disappointing. A rather unforgivably dull entry in the Spanish horror market in the 1970s, A Candle for the Devil, more well known under the title It Happened a Nightmare Inn, which is the title of the heavily censored versions, of which my review print from the Mill Creek Pure Terror set consists of, is the tale of a pair of puritanical sisters who run an inn in a small Spanish town. In addition to running the place, the sisters also have the odd habit of murdering anyone they feel offended their puritanical values. In fact, they even anybody who makes a mistake of wearing clothing too skimpy gets included in their hit list. One of the sisters also has, at least in the uncut version, a relationship with an insane man, and as the disappearances of the guests begin to take their toll on the town, the town is too small to have a police department by the way, decide to take matters into their own hands. Pretty much a waste of time for non-fans, this film seems to be unaware of the basic things like pacing. The cut version only runs to 67 minutes, yet feels like twice that long, and the technical side of things are mediocre. Director Eugenio Martin's most famous film is the extremely cheesy but very entertaining Horror Express. But the worst part is that the story makes very little sense from a motivational standpoint. The sisters are puritanical extremists who kill any woman who they feel don't meet their moral standards. It's quite interesting to note here that the director made the film as a protest against the dictatorship of General Franco, who was well on his way to a grave by this point in time, but for some reason they also falling afoul of their own moral code, as one of them peeks at young boys skinny dipping and has an affair with Ian's handyman, which makes them somewhat hypocritical in nature. If you're a fan of the film, the uncut version is the best to get, as it has all the violence, sex and nudity cut out of the film, but for those who are not diehard devotees of the Spanish horror market should best look elsewhere. Number 2, The Vampire's Night Orgy, directed by Leon Klimovsky in 1973. Give this one a D, it's bad. Another of the many clunkers in the Spanish horror market, The Vampire's Night Orgy has a decent idea at its core. A group of tourists find themselves stuck at a town populated by vampires after their bus driver dies of a heart attack, while the vampires offer the tourists money to stay in the town because, hey, they're vampires and they need some tourists to stop over because of, the whole blood diet and all. The tourists agree to stay but soon become the source of the lifeblood the vamps need to keep their tourist trap town going. 2 of the tourists manage to escape, but when they return the next morning to police investigate, the town's gone. One of those Twilight Zone things. Now, The Vampire's Night Orgy is a film that had a good idea to begin with, but a slow plotting pace and lack of anything resembling excitement. Therefore, again, I wind up with a battered-looking public domain print from the Mill Creek Pure Terror set that had the nudity removed from it. Although there is one brief boob shot from Dianik Zirakowska remaining, which look okay, I guess. So if you want to watch this film, track down an uncut print if you can. And as I said, the really slow pace and lack of action really puts this one the proverbial shitter. There were plenty of good vampire films coming out of Europe from this time period, but The Vampire's Night Orgy sure ain't one of them. On the visual effects on the rare occasions they used suck going eggs. Now number 3. Night of Bush Capturing, also known as Quest for Bush. This is actually a computer game that was released by the Global Islamic Media Front in 2006. I consider this one to be the worst first-person shooter ever made. And I gave it a D-, atrocious. And by with direction, I've got another actually, yeah, later this year I've got plenty more crap games to review. Anyway, now this was a rejigged version of an obscure American pro-Iraq war propaganda piece where you hunt down Saddam Hussein, but here rejigged by the Al-Qaeda propaganda unit by having some of the stock pictures changed and the character models changed, so the player character is a black masked Al-Qaeda terrorist hunting down George Bush by killing his American soldier mooks, who are all brain dead thanks to the mentally deficient enemy AI. And this lazy rejig also has a new problems of its own, like having to exit out of the final level left out, so it's technically impossible to beat the game. This game sucks rotten goanna eggs, that's for damn sure. And that also includes Quest for Saddam, the game that Al-Qaeda actually ripped off. And Quest for Saddam, which I gave a D, it's bad. It was released by Patrol Entertainment in 2003, so 3 years before the Al-Qaeda version came out. Well, Quest for Saddam itself was a remake of an earlier propaganda game called Quest for Hussein. So basically, Guy Bush capturing is like the third generation of that particular game. Now, Quest for Hussein, which I'll review sometime this year, used the build engine. But the remake, Quest for Saddam, actually changed it to the Torque engine purely because Petrella refused to pay 3D ROMs royalty fees due to him breaching the license 3D ROMs gives its users. The result is a ridiculously janky and short game to play. It takes the typical skilled player about an hour to beat the game, and the sole enemy in the game, an army of Iraqi soldier mooks adhering to cartoon Arab stereotypes and spouting cartoon Arabic, are practically brain dead. And like I said, this was the game that the Al-Qaeda used as a basis for their own game. But Quest for Saddam is actually slightly better than the terrorist version anyway. Now for the last subject, Day of the Dead. This was directed by Steve Mine in 2008. And this is actually the first of 2 film remakes of the George Romero classic. I gave this one a D-, so it's atrocious. One of my favourite films, the original Day of the Dead, gets a very shitty remake during the zombie boom of the 2000s. This ridiculous B-grade production, shot in the dregs of Eastern Europe with an utter refusal to do even basic fact-checking towards the depiction of US military, like the uniform detail for one glaring example, and badly written with very little thought into how the story elements are supposed to work. When I first heard this film was being made back in 2007, I was initially enthusiastic, but quickly got alarm bells on this junk and went direct to video. There are some people out there who loved the film, I won't knock them for that, but the film is an extremely poor piece of remake-itis that will never compare to even the few flaws of the awesome original. Okay, so that's it for the D-Spectrum 12. Not many candidates for this show so far in the past 25 reviews, but that can't be helped too much given more decent reviews on films are in those reviews. Don't worry about movie masochists, there'll be plenty more bad movies and some bad games as well coming our way. So keep an eye out for that. So now we basically start another year of the Apatros review. Hope you guys are staying safe. Do not do a request, but if you have any questions about DVDs or games, not really about games, but like films, DVDs in general, just hit me up in the comment section. I'll be happy to answer. Hope you guys are staying safe, enjoy the new year, and see ya.